firms, they engage in costly activities for enhancing sales of their brand. This includes advertising, quality control, and there is product differentiation cost, marketing and dealership cost, and R&D, which is the most crucial thing for any firms to exist in terms of a new technology or process, and those R&Ds are undertaken which are hugely costly, and sometimes the innovation is also undertaken by reverse engineering, by imitating some other technology. Okay? So all these activities are to be undertaken for any firm to exist in the first place. Now then we come to the multinational corporations and why does it exist. Now you tell me from the courses that you have learned, why does it exist? So are you aware of this particular literature, OLI framework? Ownership, location and internalization advantage by Dunning. Okay. So the issue is the following. Now, if you have a farm, say maybe located in Delhi, going out to Calcutta or Bombay is not difficult because you are under the same jurisdiction in terms of the Indian law. Okay. However, if you want to go to some other countries, not only the legal structure is different, but you have to have good enough cost advantage to enter in those countries. Okay, so to become multinational, that means serving more than one nation, you have to have certain advantages. Okay, now all these advantages were nicely summarized by Dunning in his 1981, 83, all these articles, and before that, Heimer in his PhD thesis in 1969, that all these advantages of any multinational activity can be clubbed into OLI framework, which is ownership, locational and internalization advantages. Okay. Now what is ownership advantage? Now there has to be a product or production process, a patent, blueprint, trade secret, and even a trademark or reputation. Okay. So if you have one of these things and which you know that you can exploit in another country, another foreign market, then you might be able to become a multinational. Now, having all these doesn't mean that you go out to another country and set up a production facility. There has to be locational advantage. So otherwise you will have all the advantages of ownership, then you simply export into another country. So why do you become multinational? You just become a trader. Now, there has to be locational advantage, which means that there has to be tariff or quota barrier or transport cost, or on the other hand, cheap factor prices. So if all these are trade barriers, so they must be dampening your trade prospect. Similarly, the factors of prices in the other country must be cheaper so that you locate your industry there to take that factor price advantage. Now, having these two things doesn't also mean that you become a multinational. Okay? Why? Because if you have both this ownership and locational advantage, why don't you simply give out those patent or blueprint or something in licensed terms to another firm located in that country, okay, and in exchange of some fixed transfer. Okay, so then you don't need to go to the other country and set up your business. So the third advantage tells you that there are transaction costs with respect to interacting with other entities. That is the initial thing that I was talking about. That you always have transaction costs if you negotiate with another party which is not part of your organization. So there must be advantage of internalizing the production when you have technology or other vocational and ownership advantages to have your own farm. Otherwise you cannot justify a theory of multinational corporation. Okay? So both the other advantages can be easily traded with the third party. But it must be costly to do so, and then you need internalization, which means you organize the production yourself. Okay? And giving out technology or brand name in collaboration to another firm in another country is always risky because they might play with your brand name, which will actually jeopardize your reputation. Also, there might be kind of firm-specific advantage that you have in terms of a technology, which might be learned by that particular firm and tomorrow he might simply breach the contract that I don't need your technology, so I will not pay you up. Okay, so as a result, you lose the technology advantage that you have in the beginning. So the multinational firm theory is based on these three important pillars of ownership, locational, and internalization advantage. Now, whenever we are talking about technology, now technology can be of two types. One is embodied, which is embodied in a particular capital goods or asset, which can be or in physical structure or machinery. Similarly, it can be disembodied, so which means that it is not, it cannot be packaged in a particular object, but they are related to say management, organization, design and operating instruction, okay, for production system, etc., which cannot be codified and transferred to other firm. So this technology can be of two types, and it is assumed that multinational firm have to have technological advantage to become multinational. Otherwise, it has no reason to or no capability of going into other countries and sell products there. Okay. So is it clear until now? Yes. Okay. So now, having technology for the multinational is must, but there are a variety of ways the multinational can actually transfer the technology. Now, one is foreign direct investment. So, foreign direct investment can take two different forms. One is a direct entry, which means that the multinational goes into a foreign country and set up a business there. These are known as wholly owned subsidiaries. Okay. On the other hand, they can simply take over the existing firm in that market, okay, and then it is actually inheriting through that takeover, mergers or acquisitions that the existing asset of the firm of that particular country. As a result, it doesn't need to start from zero, so it can simply go for mergers and acquisitions. Second is joint venture and licensing, which means that it can simply form a joint venture by with a local firm rather than entering on its own, or it can simply license the technology, and that's another mode through which the technology can be transferred by the multinational to a foreign market. And then also the third possibility is there, they can simply have franchising, management contract, and turnkey contracts. So this depends on the specification of the technology which can be transferred through this channel. So franchising, management contracts, and turnkey contracts. Now in developing countries, particular and emerging countries or China or India or whatever you can think of apart from the most developed countries, it is not wholly owned subsidiary. So people that multinationals do not come and set up their own business. It is typically the joint venture which is taken as the major form of organization for the multinational corporations with a local partner. Okay. And what is joint venture? Joint venture is a form of separate legal organization representing part of holding of two or more parent companies to produce a particular goods or service. And to sum up, there is a background literature and there is a huge literature in this. I am just talking about some of the crucial features of those literature. So the reason for joint venture formation is to pool complementary resources. So otherwise, if you don't have complementary resources, it is better to remain separate. Okay. So, and how these complementary resources can be coming? Technological collaboration. So there is technology advantage of one party which can be used by the existing facilities of another party. Okay, and also it can give synergistic gain. So when the two things are amalgamated, there might be more cost reduction and more efficient. Similarly, there can be financial collaboration, which means that suppose you have to float a venture but you don't have adequate capital. Now then what do you do? Now there are a variety of ways you can raise finance, but in today's world for big corporations it's not easy to fund just by public offering in their own country. So what they do essentially, they collaborate with another large corporation from say another country, and if they bring in the finance together, then the project requirement of that investment is fulfilled. So this financial collaboration is another important reason why these joint ventures are typically formed. Now, apart from that, these are pure in terms of pure collaboration without any strategic reason. So, you need each other in terms of complementarity, in terms of filling up the financial obligations, you are coming together. But in the international context, especially, you have lots of strategic reasons why you should form a joint venture. And these strategic reasons by which I mean that it is not a natural reason for the joint venture to be formed, but you want to take some gain in terms of, say, maybe impeding the entry of other firms, or maybe creating a business environment for you which is most favorable but very adverse to others. Okay? So these the strategic reasons are new market expansion, entry greater. So if we form joint venture in a particular country, maybe we become so large that other firms will not be effectively able to compete and enter, so they will not enter, anticipating this joint venture is formed. And also sometimes, suppose two of the firms are thinking whether to form a joint venture or not, but if they don't form a joint venture, they will be competing head on, right? And we know that in standards where there are few firms, the theory is oligopoly theory, which guides you what sort of competition will take place. So there will be competition, and whenever there is a competition, there is always a loss of gain, loss of profit, okay? Which can be avoided if they form a joint venture, thereby they just keep the thing in monopoly. So suppose imagine that only two firms are possible, we are thinking whether to form a joint venture or go all alone. Then if they go alone, then the market will become duopoly, which means overall profit will be lower as compared to that. If they can form a joint venture, the market remains under monopoly. And also the other strategic reason is pollution in third market. So for example, if you imagine that say European and US markets, suppose we are considered these are the only two markets, okay? But in those markets, suppose the firms are in coalition, and we are thinking of, say, firm A and B, they are thinking of whether to enter in India. Now A and B are already serving European and US market, but they are colluding in those markets. Now if they come all alone to this Indian continent, then there will be competition in this market, and which might have a ripple effect, backlash in their home market, that is in Europe and US market, that the pollution might break down. So in order to avoid such possibility and contingency, it might be helpful to form a joint venture in the context of India, so that their pollution back home in Europe and America remains intact. So typically, just to sum up, that MNC will have some firm-specific advantage, knowledge, technology management, and other things which the MNC can offer in the context of all the international joint ventures, especially for the developing countries. On the other hand, the local firms, although they do not have, because they are from the emerging economies, the developing countries, do not have technology, but they possibly can provide the knowledge about the local market. They might have political connections, lobbying, and also they might be aware of the other infrastructure facilities they might be having in terms of cushion, land holding, or land location, or whatever, which is not easy for the partners to come and acquire. Okay, so this is a win-win situation for both the partners. The local country, local firm has a variety of assets which are like in terms of, say, land or plants, machinery, plants, and also the knowledge about market, also the political connection. On the other hand, multinational comes with a new technology. They want to join hands in order to exploit the market. And also joint venture can create synergistic effect, so which means that if you imagine that, say, in a production chain, there are multiple stages of production. So one can be very good at one, another can be very good at another, and when they combine hands, both the division of that production chain will function more efficiently. So as a result, there are gains to be made from this joint venture. So having said that there are lots of advantages of joint venture, if you look at the empirical reality, joint ventures are typically unstable in nature. So there is high rate of failure or instability, and in this context I might just remember some of our fond memories with Sunil, that when I was writing my thesis and he was used to give me different cases where things are not going well in terms of different joint ventures in Indian context, and that was the time in 90s, post-liberalization, lots of things are happening in the corporate world, and one such important thing was that many of the joint ventures which were formed in the early 90s just to avoid the government mandated equity restrictions. So initially in 93, which you may not know now, that there are lots of restrictions on the equity holding in Indian context. So if a multinational wants to come, it cannot wholesale maybe more than 49% in most industries. Okay? This is now, until now it is true in some of the defense industries, but in those days, even in say car market or even in other kind of consumer durable goods, you need to have only up to a minority holding. You cannot have a majority holding in the initial stage of liberalization in Indian context.
But now, again, now let me just add to that.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
this is possibly true in FDI and retail,
This
aviation,
is true in FDI retail, right?
aviation
right.
and retail. These are the two, and even telecom.
Right.
Where the similar things are repeating, which happened.
Which happened in the 93s for even for a very ordinary kind of products. Huh? Now this is happening until now. So those restrictions are there. Now, so in view of those restrictions, the multinational found some easy way to enter India was to find a local partner and form a joint venture. Okay? So those joint ventures over time, because all this liberalization process which just took off this barrier or all the limit on the foreign equity restrictions, as a result, those joint ventures went into trouble, and multinationals started basically flexing their muscles and say that we want to go all alone, okay? And we want to basically either convert it into a subsidiary in terms of buying you out, or we will float a separate subsidiary. Now you are all aware of this Hero Honda and all these things, right? So those are initially joint venture, and then the partners fell apart, and they are now doing on their own.
Bharti Walmart will be similar also.
Bharti Walmart also in the similar line. So this high rate of failure is not with respect to India. This is true for entire development context and also in development. So if you read Paul Biggs, who has extensively written on this, that high rate of joint venture instability, he has cases from all across the globe, and he has compiled them, and he has shown sometimes it is about 60-70% joint ventures, they don't run more than 5 years. Okay? And then they break down. So this was the kind of typical features, and these are the main kind of spirit behind all these joint ventures failure. So what is the existing theory of formation that you by now I don't want to repeat, and I want to be mindful about the total content. So yeah. So you know the reasons for joint venture formation, and the main reason for failure is that there is a mutual need when the joint venture is formed. However, over time, whether it is the relaxation of the government equity restriction or the partners learn each other's skill. Okay, so for example, Hero, when it started off, it has only ability to produce maybe bicycle. Okay, now you know that Hero is producing the motorbike. Now what happens in the process? You form a joint venture, you learn the skill or you learn the technology over time. So the local partner also, after a point, they can also turn the back and say, I am going on my own because I have learned the crucial technology that you have transferred. Okay. So given this kind of situation, joint venture typically breaks down because of this mutual learning or other kind of external environment changing. So maybe there are many other multinational firms which are also entering post-liberalizations. Then if you are also a kind of large corporations, you have the ability, you don't like to have a baggage of a local partner, you want to also go all alone. Now, many of you will be executive in different firms and consultancies, so it would be helpful to know how to go about forming a joint venture if you at all need to advise someone. So, first is determining the interest. So, for what purpose this joint venture will be formed. So, first on those interests. And then once you have found that okay, there is a great opportunity in Bangladesh, okay, you want to form a kind of joint venture and you have an interest. But then in Bangladesh also there will be many farms. So you have to find the exact target. So selection of partner is important. Now when you select a partner, variety of consideration you have to keep in mind, looking at the corporations, their basic features, and you as a business executive also need to know that who should be a strong or a nice partner. Okay. Now then the next stage is negotiation on the terms. So ownership structure and governance. Joint venture doesn't mean that it is always 50-50. It can be 70-30, 60-40, whatever. Okay. So in such a context, looking at the partner's mutual contribution, you have to strategically determine the exact share distribution. Because if some partner who is contributing the most is given a very little shareholding, then obviously that partner will not have interest in doing so. Okay? So you have to look at the mutual contribution to this particular venture and then determine the interest, that is the shareholding. And once the shareholding pattern is decided, you need to also know what sort of governance structure will be in place. Two parties, two separate parties forming a joint venture, who should be in the controlling position. Okay? And in case something goes wrong, who will take the decision. Okay? So this is an important issue. When you design a joint venture, you need to also have the decision making properly laid down in the governance structure. And also the contingency plan means that if the market environment becomes completely different, then if there is a breakdown possibility, then what sort of division in terms of the existing asset and all other things will take place. So you have to have that, so to say, the divorce clause embedded in the marriage clause. Okay? So this is the contingency plan, and you need to be think through for all these questions. And the reasons I have already discussed a lot about it, but let me talk about culture and compatibility. Now typically what happens, we are from Asia and there is a bit of an Asian culture embedded in us, but within Asia there are a variety of cultures. So for example, lots of American firms they complain that it is very difficult to deal with Japanese partners. Okay? Because the Japanese partners are very closed mindset. And they are going to do as per their assigned task. They don't want to ask a lot of questions or create problems. Whereas if you take an Indian partner, you know the life for you. Okay? At every step they will ask questions. Why should you do it? Okay? And so in such a context, sometimes it might be worthwhile to go for a Japanese partner if you want a subordinates of a lot of people who will be actually carrying forward all the advices given coming from the top. But on the other hand, for a research or other kind of things, it might be helpful to have an Indian partner because you know that Indians are argumentative, right? So they will be giving you more interesting picture. So now there are some of the interesting empirical observation that half of the foreign firms' investment occurred in the form of mergers and acquisitions. Now I just want to disentangle from joint venture the mergers and acquisitions, which I have talked about in the beginning, that there are two forms of FDI. One is mergers and acquisition, another is direct entry in terms of setting up a subsidiary. Now, if you look in general, there is a large segment, large proportion of the foreign direct investment takes place in terms of mergers and acquisitions, and these are some of the statistics you might be interested in. So UNCTAD reported that about 60% of the total FDI in 1997 was in mergers and acquisitions, and the number was increasing. Just prior to financial crisis, the mergers and acquisitions was equal or exceeded greenfield investment. Greenfield, I mean the subsidy setup, direct entry. Okay. So mergers and acquisitions, which is another form of this MNC's entry strategy into any new country, is a substantial component of it. Now, in the mergers and acquisitions, I will take you through two important problems. And how much time do I have?
40 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay. So, regarding these mergers and acquisitions, you have two important problems, and the problem is asymmetric information. Now, all of us know that whenever we negotiate with somebody with respect to anything, the main issue is how much we know about each other. Okay. Now, if we know enough about each other, then the writing a contract or coming together in terms of anything is very efficient and possible. But when that comes from different countries, they are having these mergers, acquisitions, or joint venture formation or whatever, they don't know each other's skills that way. Okay. So, for example, when a multinational is coming, it is coming with the technology, but the domestic partner doesn't know, or domestic firm which is subject to say takeover, doesn't know how much is the cost efficiency of that new technology that the foreign firm is bringing in. Okay. Now, in such a context, to deal with that multinational whose capability is not clearly established, not known to the domestic partner, it is difficult for it to strike a bargain with respect to a proper transaction. Okay? And in some cases, because of this asymmetric information, you might find that the transaction doesn't take place. I will give you a concrete example to make you understand. On the other hand, imagine that multinational is coming and domestic partner is trying to have a good deal with the multinational by showing or reporting that the domestic market is fabulous, demand is really high, and we will be able to earn in crores. Okay, but what is the guarantee that will happen? So, multinational would not be very convinced because it doesn't know. Domestic partner being in India for long would be knowing about the market condition, about a new product, how the particular product will be sold in the Indian market. So, it can give an inflated picture. You have to get a good bargain, but on the other hand, multinational will be apprehensive that look, this guy is over-reporting. Okay, so that will also create this asymmetric information related to demand will also create problem for mergers and acquisitions. Now, in the international context, there are some literature which has talked about these two-sided asymmetric information. In a sense that either the technology is not known to the others or the domestic market condition is not known to the multinational. Okay? So, these are the two papers, Chu and Zhao, and then this Das and Sengupta. Okay, now I will take you through two of my earlier thesis paper, so to say. I will not take you to the technicalities of it, but I will consider two different scenarios. When the host firm has private information about the local market demand, and when the foreign firm has private information regarding its own cost of production. Okay? Now, when the host firm, that means the Indian partner, has private information, only it knows about the local demand, multinational cannot know. On the other hand, to being in the management school, you will be say that why not a market survey? The market survey is actually very costly. And unless a good is there on the market, whatever questions you ask, people will give wrong answers. Okay, because they also don't know. So, for example, when the Maruti came in, how many people thought that one day everybody will be just driving Marutis, and the daily roads and the jam packed. Okay, so in '85 nobody knew that the daily road would be such a clog kind of situation. So, in such a context, so first I will talk about the demand in the domestic country is known to the domestic partner because of the local language, and being in the market for long, it can sense the pulse of the consumers. As a result, it can know for sure whether tomorrow the market demand will be high or not. On the other hand, multinational which is coming in, it does just have some prior billing. Prior billing, by which I mean that it can have some kind of probability assessment that okay, with 50% chance it could be good, with 50% chance it could be bad. Okay? In such a situation, how you are going to organize a mergers and acquisition? Okay? The multinational is coming it is not able to assess the domestic market for sure, and as a result, it only has some kind of belief about the
Right. Those are fans, lower ones, lower lights.
Low ones.